Hey guys!
We're back!
And we have a really exciting video, but first, this is Roy.
And this is Mel.
And we are the Beans. So today we're going to be showing you some really exciting footage from our recent vacation. It was at the end of March, right?
March.
Yeah.
We came back like April Fools or something. Yeah.
And, you know, kind of took a few days to unwind after that. Now we're basically at the end of April, so we thought we might as well show you guys some of the fun stuff that we did while we were there.
This is like our first time doing a vlog. And so we weren't able to like film everything. And we're still, you know, we're smoothing out our And we had we took a few tours and stuff, but we weren't able to film everything because the tour guys are, hey man, don't do that.
No, he was really cool about it.
He was cool about it, but
he just was like, I feel uncomfortable, like people filming me. We get it.
We totally get it. I even we went to this little art thing. Remember in the alleyway across from Tattoo Shop. We went to this art thing, and I was like, yeah, it's from a YouTube channel. And dudes were like, don't film my art. I'm like, all right.
Makes sense.
So we figured we make a video like this where you see our reaction to it, and we can kind of pause the video and then explain some of the stuff and, you know, fill y'all in and fill in the gaps, right, baby?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's jump in.
Let's get it.
Okay.
So here we are on a tour of some of this beautiful French architecture. French and Spanish. Or Spanish. However you want to say it. Just looking around. Ruins is a beautiful place. Got Mel and her best friend Krew over here, and the rest of the group.
So basically, we didn't explain at this point. This was our first like full day there. We had obviously landed probably like midday the day before, kind of unwinded for a little bit, went on a night tour that was kind of wild.
That was wild.
And because it was at night and it was closer to Bourbon Street, we're like, we can't really film. It's not really the best lighting. It's
Let's call a spade a spade. Filming me at night, the jokes are in the comments already. So
I didn't even consider that. But
I did. That's why I didn't bring the camera.
So the next morning, you know, we get up, we went to breakfast at this really long place called Ruby Slipper. Yes. So if you ever are in New Orleans, I think they have like 2 to 3 locations. You should definitely go there. We had, what do we have? Like we had some lemon blueberry beignets.
Banging.
I had shrimp and grits.
I had white chocolate.
White chocolate pudding.
White chocolate bread pudding pancakes. That's what it was.
They were phenomenal. It was like so good, and you didn't really even need syrup, but like still put the syrup on there. Really good cappuccino. So anyway, once we were there, we finished up, and then we had to hurry up and take a Uber or a Lyft over to the meeting spot. Met with this tour group, and I will say we took like 3 to 4 different tours on this trip, and this guy, his name was Mac, shouting out Mac.
Shout out Mac.
Yeah, he was amazing. You could tell he just had a passion for history, his like neighborhood. He said he lived really close by.
The culture of the area.
And so this particular tour, which again you're not really going to see much of, you'll see a little bit of the buildings and the architecture as we're walking, but it was about ghosts, vampire, and murder tour, which is like, if you know me at all, that's like, I love stuff like that. Roy loves kind of that spooky.
I'm getting into, I don't mind taking, you know, I'm not really, I don't mess with supernatural stuff too much, but a tour during the day, and it's thousands of people around, you're not gonna freak me out like that.
Yeah.
Even the night tour we took, is people up and down the street like drinking and having a good time. So I'm like, it's not like a night tour throughout a grave. I'm really something like that.
Yeah, but it was really cool. Like, we'll let you watch, but it was kind of awesome too, because again, this was the first day that we were there, so it was our first glimpse at like, wow, like this is New Orleans. Like, kind of getting the whole vibe of the place. So
that's real talk.
Let's keep watching.
Everything is like crammed in really tightly here. Lots of crazy ghost stories of what we've been hearing. Tour guide requested that not film him talking, so that's what I'm doing. You're gonna see a lot of pictures and a lot of panning screens.
So obviously this was the
Ain't that
French
right,
Quarter.
ladies?
Right?
Brittles, you want to say something for the camera? There we go.
Shout out to Brittle.
Yeah. So pausing this was actually like just a still of a picture that he took. But this place is called the New Orleans Pharmacy Museum. And this place, like the way that actually this was the second time that one of our tours was brought up. So like, you know that this specific location had a ton of like dark history, a ton of like murder and just shenanigans straight up happening there like back in the day. And I'm forgetting like the specific stories, but
well, I remember most of it. We're gonna get into that in just a second. So we just popping in. We had a slight snafu with the camera beforehand, and we lost a little bit of footage, but we didn't want to leave y'all with this like big gap in what we recorded. So we popping in
to tell you about this, what we're watching or what you're watching,
and then we'll go back to our original feed. So without further ado, go ahead, baby. Push
all right,
button.
so
or not push the button.
Where we left off, or what you might be looking at, is a picture where it says druggist and apothecary, and it's currently a location called the New Orleans Pharmacy Museum. In the early 1800s, it was a museum, and it was pretty prominent in the area because it was owned by a man, or he ran this pharmacy. And back in the day, like there wasn't much regulation. You can go to a druggist or pharmacist and get like cures. Mind you, back in those days, like there was like yellow fever, malaria, all kind of disease, all kind of disgustingness going around. So like these pharmacists would, you know, you could just go to them and they would just put a little potion together and you hope that it would work. So anyway, this man that owned this pharmacy, he was actually one of the first ones that actually like went to school and passed.
Did it the right way.
Yeah, did it the right way, and so he really was helpful to the community. So then him and his family are very successful. They own this location and live, I think, on the property for many years, and until they eventually sell it or it changes hands to another pharmacist. And this is where this location gets creepy. So,
real creepy.
Yeah, so this new doctor, the new owner, his name is Dr. Dupas, and he was just like out of his mind. Like,
whack job.
Yeah, like crazy experiments, and that's why it's allegedly so haunted now.
He was doing some nasty stuff to folks.
Yeah, so one of the main things, well, do you want to talk?
Yeah, tag me in. Okay, so like, as we previously discussed, this like when yellow fever was like a big thing. I was like too many times, my bad, y'all. There were bodies all over the place. So what this dude was doing, I forget what he was trying to like cure in the womb or something, but he basically had people.
I don't know. I think he was just like experimenting to experiment. Like, I think he had an interest in medicine, but was really going about it the wrong way.
It almost feels like he was kind of like trying to play God in a way.
Yeah.
It's weird. Anyway, so there were people who would come and they pick up all the dead bodies in the street because, you know, New Orleans has a situation with like flooding and there were issues with burial, which, you know, you'll see a little bit later when we show them that piece about the garden for the tour. So there were people who come and pick up all the bodies. He was like, look, you just catch a pregnant woman out there, hit her with the chloroform, bring her to me so I can work on her and experiment, and I'll just throw her body back out later. And if you look at the picture over here on our left, where you see like it looks like half of a giant door, through there was like where he would store his carriage, and he had a trap door to the ceiling where he just, and then the bodies would fall. Yeah, and he'd later take the bodies and he'd like burn them and then like throw the remains in like the Mississippi River.
Yeah, but back then there was so much like disease, death, just sanitation in general, like life expectancy, not even just in New Orleans, but like back then was so much shorter. So like when people would die or go missing, it like wasn't really investigated that much, especially if you like lived in poverty. Like they'd be like, oh well.
Life expectancy was so short. I feel like middle age was 14.
Yeah, basically. So then, I guess that's it then.
That's it with this guy. I mean, well, he died at some point, and when they were up there checking the thing out, they found like his journals and stuff, which had documented everything. So that's it for this spot.
All right, so we're gonna continue on. Again, that's the picture of the apothecary. I think you guys really should go.
It's a great
This is
spot.
kind of a bigger picture
See
of
the
it.
door.
There's a beautiful church. Apparently, this is the closest.
Oh wait, no, this is St. Louis Cathedral.
Yeah,
This church is the closest to a jail and a bar in the United States.
Go figure.
What a trick. Learning a lot of interesting facts, y'all. Later we'll tell you more about this crazy doctor / pharmacist.
Which we just told you.
Just a trip.
Oh, if those of y'all wondering why my arm is moving, Doggo Bean is right here. I'm petting him on the head.
He wants to be
In the
in
video.
the business. As we were walking by, you probably saw a gentleman in a long yellow cloak / like robe, and you'll see them everywhere in New Orleans, and they are dressed as monks, or they look like monks. And we discovered it's kind of like a scam thing. They'll walk around, like all around the French Quarter, and try to hand you these like beaded bracelets. And they go, and they're literally like this. Like you're walking up to them, and they literally go like this, like they're ready to put it on your hand, and you kind of have to move your hand away. They're basically trying to like force you to take the bracelets, and then you could be like, give me money.
Yeah. And then they look at you crazy. We just try to like, take it out.
Yeah, and he almost fell for it once, and
I almost did, cause all right, look.
And me and Brittany were like, no.
What happened was the robe threw me off.
Right,
I'm like,
oh.
it's a religious man.
Yeah, like oh cool, and then
but I'm like, part of me was like, nah. But then when they were like, what are you doing? I'm like, yeah, I'm tripping. Like,
yeah, there's no way. And if you guys could see Doggo Bean right now, he's being so sweet.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's our pup daddy. He's in everybody.
Yeah. Moving on, I just wanted to kind of say that disclaimer because a lot of people have talked about like the different like scams that can happen in New Orleans, but I don't want that to be something to deter you. Because there's going to be like hustlers or wherever, any populated place that you go, especially a touristy destination, you know, unfortunately that is like their way of making money, and they got to get creative. There's a lot of competition if you think about it. So you can't really fault someone for trying, but you know, just.
But if we can put y'all up on some game, if you see a monk and you on Bourbon Street,
it's not a real monk.
You know, yeah. He's not a real monk, y'all. So.
Moving on.
You're also gonna have to forgive some of my camera work. Walking and pointing up and trying not to trip on these sidewalks is hard.
Janky sidewalks.
Jackson Square is what they called it. Such a beautiful place. New Orleans.
This part here, y'all are gonna see a dude like a cereal box puppet on his head or something. I don't know what was going on, but I just tried to point the camera while being in the street.
We don't know.
I couldn't tell you.
As you can tell, we're like,
Alright, y'all.
Muriel's.
So this is Muriel's.
We're gonna touch on this a little bit later, though.
Yeah.
Those
it's on the corner of Chartres and St. Anne.
And there's that room we'll touch on too.
Yeah, very interesting history.
I was learning about this ghostly dude named Pierre who ran into trouble, hung himself, and still haunts that restaurant that I took a couple pictures of. This is an excellent tour, y'all. Take a look at some of this design again.
The architecture there is so pretty.
Again, we are having an excellent time out here in NOLA. I think what's getting me is the balconies, y'all. I love the way the balconies look.
What was the other word they used? It's not a balcony, but it's like
I know what you're talking
grass.
The city just hustles and bustles, you know what I mean? Even throughout the day. Definitely a party town at night.
And they were shooting a Popeyes commercial.
Right?
New Orleans is crazy, but I love it. So we get a ticket.
Yeah, we did.
Someone just got a ticket.
Right behind Mel.
Right behind us. Yeah.
And he came.
Right here.
He came running out from that door right as the lady was writing the ticket. It's messed up.
Beautiful architecture. Brittany, you want to say something to the camera?
We have so much more to tell you, so much more to show you, and yeah.
Outfit change. So I think the thing to start with would probably be let's just start from the outside, the barrier. Didn't he say something about it? There was an accident and they knocked the part of the wall came down and they found a bunch of like skeletons and dead bodies in the wall.
Yeah.
I mean, that alone is enough to talk about.
And so they don't really, I mean, I don't know if he explained it, but you know, there was mystery of it was like, if it was like from slavery, like native, maybe Native American, like it's just wild. Like basically think like this, what should be like a holy building is basically
pretty dang unholy.
Yeah, literally. And so it was a convent for years.
And I believe, now correct me if I'm wrong, because you know we're filling in gaps too from our memory.
Yeah.
But didn't he say that like when they built the place, they basically took people who were like in jail in another country and sent them over here and had made them build this place?
Yeah, I want to say it was from France.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, whole Louisiana Purchase stuff later and all that. And who owned it at what point in time? Again, foggy on.
We're no historical experts. But anyway, yeah. So like this place, it like what should be a beautiful place. It seems like it started out kind of doomed.
Being built in a terrible vibe.
Yeah.
You know.
So at one point they are trying to bring like basically increase the population of the area.
Because it was like all a bunch of men.
All
really.
men and like labor workers. So they're like, we need some females up in here.
It was that kind of party.
Yeah.
It shouldn't have been.
So don't ask me why, but they thought it would be a good idea to send from France teenage girls to go live at this place. And there was, you know, rumors that these girls were actually vampires because you could see them walking out off of the ship with pulling what looked like caskets behind them. So that's kind of where the whole vampire rumors started.
And they were super pale and pasty looking, and that's where that started.
Probably just was like scurvy and they didn't know.
You know, and they've been down below the deck for like months, ain't seen sunlight. I mean, you know,
they weren't tanning. But regardless, so from the beginning there was kind of like all these weird rumors going. So anyway, a bunch of other stuff happened. Like a while ago, it might have even been in the 70s. One of whoever that current pope was at the time. No, this was before. When they shuttered the thing.
Yeah, this is before.
So, okay, scratch that. Way before the 70s. Like maybe even a whole century ago. I don't know for sure. Whoever was the current pope at the time came from Europe because he was asked to bless the building and the city of New Orleans because they're like, this is weird.
And a lot of nastiness going on, a lot of craziness. Come bless this pope.
Yeah. So he came and stopped at that church first. Went up to the second story and
went in the attic.
And don't really know exactly what happened in there, but it was so wild that he said the shutters on that top level need to be boarded up, nailed shut to never be opened again.
Which also added to the vampire thing, because why you can't have no sunlight in there?
Right.
But you're trying to hide, Pope.
Yeah. And to this day, those are still nailed shut with the same nails. Like no one's touched it. No one really even goes in there.
It freaked the Pope out.
It freaked the Pope out so much so that he got the heck out of there, went back to Europe, and never blessed New Orleans. So there's, you know, kind of that running joke of like, no wonder why New Orleans is New Orleans, you know, because it's like the city that can't be blessed. So it's just wild. So then fast forward to the 70s, there was a team of paranormal investigators that go to that convent.
This is a good one.
This is a good one. And it was a group, but it was 2 males, 2 females. And so the females were like, ladies first, we're gonna investigate first. I don't really know if that was the agreement they had, but the girls were like, we'll go first. These 2 women stayed the night, ran their investigation, and they were supposed to be meeting the 2 other male investigators the next morning.
Shift change, they'll take over.
Shift change. So the 2 males walk up to the front doors, and they see the 2 women investigators sitting on the stoop. There's a couple stairs leading up to the church, and they see them, and they're just kind of sleeping like this. And they're like, you know, how was it? They're asking the girls how their investigation was. And,
to them and stuff.
you know, they looked completely normal except for just like, and as they're looking, they realize they each have a single puncture wound in their neck, and they're dead.
Dead, y'all. Sitting on the porch. Dead.
So of course, oh my God, they go take them to the coroner's office, and they determine that
like a third of their blood was missing.
Blood had been like drained. It was missing. Even though they still looked so lively, to the point where they were talking to them, thinking that they were alive, that like they must have died quick and recently with the puncture wound, like some vampire tea.
But the thing that got me is like 1 puncture wound. So like, did he have a chipped tooth or something?
Or like a straw.
Yeah, he's sitting there, let me drink from a straw. I'm fancy. And the last thing on that building was like, if you look at the emblem in the center, there's a dove. And usually doves, you know, represent peace and love and all this stuff.
Like purity, it's big Christianity symbol, the dove.
But this dove was upside down, and the shape of the dove was almost like an upside down cross.
Yes, and it's, like you said, upside down, like almost like facing the direction of...
Like it was dying and falling. It was crazy.
Yeah, so like, we're like, who would do that? Who signed off on this?
I remember making a joke with the tour guy, like, man, you should tell people like Prince saw this, and that's how When Doves Cry came out. But he's like, I'm gonna use that.
Yeah, so again, it was like who signed off on that? Like, this place was just doomed from the beginning.
Seriously.
It's just wild, but super fascinating to learn about.
Real.
All right, so
that place was definitely crazy.
Yeah, so then we kind of walked around the corner. Of course, he's still talking, and we're like, whoa, that building was wild. And then previously in the tour, he had said, here are a few things you're going to see. You're going to see this, 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 and this, and then one of them being the most haunted building or home or something in the United States.
In the whole U.S. of A.
So because, moving back to Muriel's, at one point that was a private residence, I was like, oh, must be Muriel. So at one point, as we were walking to this location that you see here,
this spot,
he was like, no, this one. And as we approached it, we're coming on from the side of it. And it wasn't until he started talking that it hit me, and I was like, I know exactly what this building is, and a lot of you might as well, but this is the infamous, the famous LowRider Mansion.
Dun, dun, dun.
And again, this is a side picture of it. If you've seen a picture of it like in history, or if you've watched like American Horror Story Coven, you typically see it from like the corner view, and it's 2 to 3 stories. You see kind of like the balcony on that front wrapped around part, and you know, the black shutters. So anyway, this picture is interesting because as you can see, there's, you know, that second level. Well, that's actually the 3rd level. That top level, you see all those windows, but that second one in is completely bricked or cemented shut. Because,
well,
this is like the 2nd story. We'll go back to like why this.
There's a lot to unpack with this house too. But the reason it's all boarded or cemented up like that, there was a dude who stayed there with his wife, and they had just had a baby. A lot of people stayed in this building at one point.
He might have even been like an owner at some point after the.
No, I feel like you said this was like boarding house style at that point in time in history when this happened.
Okay.
Also, brief side note: Nicolas Cage owned this house at one point for 4 days or something like that. Anyway, or could only stay there 4 days. This window, so dude lived there.
Used to be a normal window.
Normal window. Normal single family dwelling or whatever, and the husband and wife had just had a baby, And one night, he heard the baby kind of crying, and he woke up, and in the moonlight, he saw his wife standing there looking at the baby in the crib and stuff. And he's kind of like, let the baby go back to sleep. Come on, get in bed. And he hears from right next to him in bed, what are you talking about? I'm right here. So dude freaks out, right?
He's like, I just saw you
standing
in the
over
window
the crib
with the baby.
Yeah. So they get up and they check on the baby. Baby's no more. Baby's gone.
So of course they're devastated, and they're like, what was that? Like, I saw my wife.
But yet he's like, no, she's right here next to me.
So they obviously, assume it's something paranormal, obviously. And they go talk to a priest or someone who says, you need to board up that window and never open it up again. And so that's why it looks so mismatched like that, and they've kept it that way ever since.
Right.
But this was, of course, like years after the main owners / the shenanigans that happened with this house. Like,
ooh, they're wrong.
It is wild.
They wrong.
Yeah, it is so tragic, but it's very historically fascinating, and I think it's important for us as people to know, because
make sure the story gets told.
Yeah, and all the tragedies that happened here. So what had happened was, there was a woman, she's infamous as being America's first female serial killer.
The husband knew it was going on too, though.
Yeah. I don't believe that there's no way he didn't know. There's no way. So anyway.
Bonnie without Clyde.
Yeah, so I believe she was French as well. Back when she lived in Europe, I believe France, she had unalived 2 of her previous husbands.
Unalived.
Yes. And so at some point she moves over to New Orleans, either with her 3rd husband, or she meets him once she gets here. I don't remember. But his name is Mr. LaLaurie. So she's, Delphine LaLaurie. She's famous because she's crazy. Anyways, of course, back in this era, it was acceptable to have slaves, and especially someone who had wealth. A lot of the time,
slaves, indentured servants.
Yeah, a lot of times to show your wealth was to acquire slaves. It's gross. It's a gross part of our history.
Yes, dude.
Yeah. So anyway, they had this big house, but over time,
they always had these parties too.
Well, just in general, over time, I think people were saying for the size house you have, yes, it's a very nice and lovely home. But why do you have so many slaves? We've seen you going to the auctions or whatever, obtaining all these slaves, but for what? Where are they? You have room for all those slaves? So anyway.
It became a common thing too, is people would see the slave, they'd have these parties and people would see the slaves once and never see them, and they have another party and whole new set of slaves.
And as we know,
brand new cast.
Someone couldn't just have slaves and then just be yeah, you can go now. That just didn't happen.
Didn't fly.
So people were starting to get a little suspicious until this fateful evening, the LaLaurie couple decided to have some sort of party. And basically, sometime throughout the festivities, a fire broke out, and they realized it was coming from this back kitchen that they had. Of course, rich people, they're like, oh no, let's get the fine china, let's get the couches.
Oh, my caviar.
Yeah. They're like, let's take it out to the street, let's continue this party out there. So, as I guess rich people would do, they're having their party out there while the
working class man, the firefighter.
You're
trying to save your stuff.
The fire crew come to see what's going on, stop the fire, da-da-da. So as they do so, they break down this garage door, and what they see is absolutely horrible, to the point where we probably can't even describe it here, but let's just say it had to do with people that were being enslaved, human torture, human experimentation.
Well, that was upstairs. Can we tell the stove part?
Yeah.
Okay, so there was a lady.
And this was right when they first walk in. So they're like, oh my God.
There's a lady, older lady, who had been chained to a stove for 30 years, and she basically caused the fire and sent the smoke out there.
She caused the fire.
Yeah. Yeah, and sent the smoke out there, and she's like, look, I don't care what you do with me, just don't make me go upstairs.
Yeah.
And so they went up, after they cut her loose or whatever. They went upstairs and they found all this like terrible human torture that these people were doing on these slaves. And they say when the firemen like kicked the door in upstairs and like kneeled, but actually what they did was they threw up on sight. And the stuff they saw, we're not going to go into detail on what they told us because I am really trying to get demonetized like 4th video in.
Plus it's just horrible. It's not really something that you want to talk about.
Yeah.
But again, I think it's good to know that like
good people still existed back then because the firefighters were like, oh, this ain't gonna fly. Let's haul all these people out of here and let everyone see what these people have been doing.
And so also it's good to know that like even back then, like there was so much evil. I think it's like interesting because in modern times we think like the world's going awful, but like stuff like this happened back then too. Like, so anyway, but regardless, so the fire crew breaks in. They discover all this horrible conditions, and I believe that they also found that many of the slaves were also deceased in there. Basically that they had been being murdered, and it was later discovered that so many more had been murdered. I think they said like 250 or something slaves were like being murdered for like just random reasons, like just to be absolutely evil.
Almost seems like just for entertainment.
Yeah.
But, people are crazy like that.
So
they hauled all them slaves' bodies out of there and put it in the street in the middle of the party
to
for
let
everybody
everyone
to see.
Like this is what they've been doing. Like, and the party people, the friends were like, oh heck no, this is not okay.
Y'all gotta pay for this. And they turned and looked, them people had already broke out.
The couple left. They I think as soon as they were like, oh shoot,
we're
it's coming from the kitchen, they're gonna see, someone's gonna see, they dipped.
Yeah, they very smoothly just slid up out of there, and while the party was still going, people hadn't even noticed they weren't there.
Yeah.
And
so yeah, as horrible as it was to this day, that's why that location is so haunted. That's why no one can stay there. Oh, that's actually the garage right there. And as you can see, that second level, imagine being their neighbors.
I wonder what that smell was the whole time.
No, I mean like currently, like I wonder if they have weird stuff happening too.
I can imagine.
And it's just crazy too to see like the juxtaposition of like modern times and seeing like this beautiful building as we're walking by. Like we verbally were like, wow, look how pretty that building is.
It'd be so great to live there.
I would love to own that as a house. And the tour guide was like, just wait.
Wait till I finish showing you this.
He's like, hold my beer, basically. And so yeah, it's just fascinating. I definitely recommend like researching it if it's something that would be interesting to you. But just
this tour is definitely worth it.
Just be warned, it's very dark.
Yeah, that was wild stuff.
So I tell you to leave.
So this is him kind of talking.
The spirits that come next, they're not ghosts anymore, they're poltergeists. Difference being, a ghost can scare you, a poltergeist can physically harm you.
So that's that front view that I was talking about.
No, this corner here was the vampire's
house. That was interesting.
Such beautiful architecture. They do stuff in the show cover here.
The show cover?
You should watch that too.
This place is crazy. Hearing a lot of crazy ghost stories. Including this picture we just took right before coming. Spot next door. The most haunted place in America. Dang.
He was obviously a man of means. He would throw a big party.
So it was a very brief clip, but he was talking about the man of
means.
It was basically like a vampire's house. And that was really interesting too. Like this vampire would talk about how he had like this uncle and would always describe like a super fascinating life. And anyway, like
he never told a story of like when his uncle passed or whatever, right?
Yeah, and then
he'd always throw these wild parties and stuff. But people are always like, when people started getting suspicious, because they'd be like, you never really want to be the last person at this guy's party. Like, leave, you know what I mean? And he always had his own vintage wine
that like
only he would drink, right? And people often said they seen things like him jumping off his own balcony and just kind
like
of floating down or whatever.
I wish I could do that.
Yeah, And so one time this girl was at his party. She was the last one there, and he's, you know, getting ready to do his kind of moves or whatever. And she like jumps off the balcony and like, didn't she like break her legs or something?
Yeah, I forgot about that.
And got to the cops at the same time. I don't know, where it drew attention, and the cops came, whatever. And they go in there and they start checking the place out because she's saying he's acting bizarre and weird and didn't seem right. And they ended up breaking one of them.
At the same time, he was very charismatic,
very
cool.
smooth.
That's why everyone wanted to go to his parties. Like, he was rich, he had booze, you know, but like, you just didn't want to be the last one there.
Yeah, it was very Interview with a Vampire-ish.
Yeah,
that's the vibe I was getting.
Like, me too. Like Tom Cruise's character, like, for sure, let's stop.
You know, I'm smooth. Come party with me.
People were also like getting suspicious because he would talk about like all of these like travels and all like this amazing life that he had that his uncle had.
But he kept Freudian slipping.
Yeah, but then he would mistakenly like say like I or whatever. So they were like, is it you or is it your uncle? So
it's my uncle.
People were like, okay, he's a vampire, but he's cool, so we'll keep him around.
You know. Anyway, the cops, when they did that search, they ended up breaking one of the bottles. I'm like, this ain't wine, and it was like mixed wine with like, it was like 40% wine, 40% blood, and 40%, what was that other thing? Or 40%.
Like absinthe or something. I don't know.
Absets or something, absinthe, I don't know. Sazerac, who knows? So they realized that all the bottles he had were mixed like that, and he was the only one drinking out of these bottles. Mm-hmm. So that like became the thing, like, wow, this cat was a vampire.
Yeah.
Let's continue though.
So now, again, we're looking at like that front view. So of the St. Louis Cathedral. Mm-hmm. We're kind of on an upper terrace across the street that leads to the Mississippi River. It's like,
Mississippi.
Yeah. And I just love this shot because if you guys have ever seen Princess and the Frog, the Disney animated movie, you see this like in the beginning. And so it was cool to just be like, oh my God, Tiana, yay, like to kind of like
see where it happened.
See it in person. And that's the St. Louis Cathedral.
Okay.
I think. So to your right.
I gotta ask, is that where Disney stole that image from? Because it's kind of looking Disney.
What do you mean?
Like the castle.
No, not at all.
It just seems like.
Based off of the European castle, but this one, you do see it in the beginning of Princess and the Frog. And then to the left side of the Louisiana Purchase. Louisiana Purchase.
Riddle's talking on camera.
That's where the United States got this back from the French. And then if you scan to the right, you might not be able to see it, but that's Cafe Du Monde down there. Cafe Du Monde.
Yeah, through the trees, y'all.
Do some beignets at Cafe Du Monde.
The Mississippi River. There's a paddle boat over there. I'm trying to get a zoom in on for y'all. Click. I'm gonna figure that out, y'all. I'm sorry.
Ignore the excessive clicking. That's a paddle boat. I think it's called like the Natchez or something. So as you can see, it was kind of gloomy that day.
But the weather was great.
Yeah, it was nice. Like as you can see, we're all wearing like long sleeves and stuff. It was kind of chilly, but I would prefer that over
hot, humid, and just miserable.
The tour, by the way, was phenomenal.
Amazing tour. Shout out to him. Look at this. That's the Mississippi River, y'all.
Yeah.
Perfect music in the backdrop.
And there's like stairs leading down it, so you can just kind of chill. It's really not that pretty right there, but it's a huge river, so like a lot of movement.
He got skills. He was happy to perform.
Out of order, but there's that pharmacy picture.
Another pharmacy picture. He was happy to perform. Another thing this place is really known for is his jazz music. But a little later, I'm hoping I'll be able to get into like a jazz club. It's on my bucket list. But right now, we're going to take this moment, this bit of time, to sit and enjoy the time we got while listening to some jazz music put together by this band out here. Watch them do their thing.
So at this point, like he and then my friend and I had like separated. Like
he left me, y'all.
We wanted to go look at the shop that we had passed during the tour, and we encouraged him to go get a massage. So he went his way, we went ours, and so at this point, like me and Brittany were walking back to meet him, and that's where he was. And as we're walking up, and this is what he's capturing at the same time, the jazz band is playing What a Wonderful World by Louis Armstrong, which is like one of my favorite songs. I actually walked down the aisle to that song.
She actually did.
Yeah. So it was just like kind of like emotional for me. Like it was so pretty out. It was like surreal.
At this moment?
Yeah, because like
because
we were walking up this way trying to find you, and it was just like
you're walking
wow.
to your husband and there's that song again.
Yeah, but also like in New Orleans, like I have always wanted to go to New Orleans, and again this was like the first day we were there, had this amazing tour, beautiful day, and it was like wow, full circle moment.
Let's continue. By the way, we do not own the rights to any music you're seeing here, but it's a public event, so.
That's us laughing.
I was going to say something to the camera. Hey ladies, how y'all doing? Y'all having fun out here? Alright.
So that's the end of part 1. Hope you enjoyed it, and
yeah.
Stay tuned for part 2. That's
right,
just the beginning.
You know what they say, right?
What?
Life is good.
But it's better when it's
Muy Bean. And the right brittles.